I'm Jamie Beebe.
And I'm Jake Deptula. We're the host of Strictly Stalking,
A weekly true crime podcast exploring true stalking stories from survivors in their own words.
We cover unique stalking cases through interviews with stalking survivors, advocates, and experts.
Strictly Stalking has been praised by survivors, advocates, listeners, and media for raising awareness about the dangerously underreported and often fatal crime of stalking.
Our series continues to provide a vital platform for stalking survivors to share their stories.
And provides anti-stalking resources for listeners along with important tips on how friends, family, and law enforcement can support stalking survivors.
Please listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And you have landed in the epicenter of Creep Street Podcast.
That's right, baby. Welcome.
Welcome to the Forge, where gods are made. Look, I'm going to cut to the chase here and tell you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. Also on Facebook, we have a little forum where daily we like to interact with our listeners.
That's right.
It's called Citizens of the Milky Way, a Creep Street fan page. Anyone is welcome to join. You just click that Let Me In button and one of us will let you in. We're also on TikTok. And of course, if once a week is not enough for you...
And it's not.
It's not. Quit. Oh my God. You're a fucking liar if you think it's not.
Yeah. So don't be that way. Don't be a liar. There's no need to lie. God damn it.
God damn it. Just head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast for all sorts of gobblish goodies.
That's right.
Of goblin goodies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Maureen, real quick, for listeners in the Chicago area, we will be doing a live panel at C2E2.
Yes.
On Friday, August 5th at 4:15 p.m. at the McCormick Center, where it's C2E2.
Yes.
We had a great time last December, and we know we're going to have a great damn time.
Oh my God, it's going to be so much fun. We really hope you guys come out and come meet us, come say hello, and maybe get some swag.
Absolutely. Now, Maureen, July has been paranormal heavy. It's been haunting heavy.
It has been.
Whether it was straight up hauntings or just dealing with specters, EVPs,
right.
It's just been very paranormal. But today, we got something that's going to chill you to your bone.
Yes, a real, true, 100% true story.
Yes. Not that the ones we've covered aren't.
Of course.
But this is legit, like, this
we know.
Yes.
Is true.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Maureen, what the hell are we talking about?
Today, we are talking about the Jamison Family Mystery.
Maureen, we're all baring our cheeks. Why don't you paddle our asses with those sources?
Yikes, you've said that saying once or twice before, and
doesn't get old.
It doesn't get old. It also, I don't believe, is a saying, so if people are a little confused by it,
it's just something I say. I just like to say, paddle your ass.
No, I know you like to say it. I'm just saying, for those out there listening, if you didn't know what was going on, I just want you to know that's okay. You just got to lean in here on Creep Street.
We like to paddle ass on
Yeah.
Creep Street.
Especially with sources. My first source is an incredible YouTube page called Stephanie Harlow, and the video is called The Bizarre Case of the Jamison Family.
St. Harlow.
That's right. We also got The Strange Disappearance and Deaths of the Jamison Family in the San Juan Mountains at strangeoutdoors.com.
Ooh.
We also got theories about what happened in the Jamison family murders by Leah Rose Emery at ranker.com.
Well, good golly goddamn, Maureen. This sounds like it's going to be a banger of a sode.
It's going to be an interesting one. This one is creepy. It's weird. It's a mystery, folks.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in the title. And there's certain aspects about this when we were first hearing about it that I was like, what is that about?
Right.
And we'll obviously talk about that when we come to them. But good golly goddamn, Maureen, tell us the story.
Now, Bobby and Sherilyn Jamison met and fell in love in Oklahoma City in 2002. It wasn't long after that they got married and they had their daughter Madison on August 1st, 2003. They bought this lake house in Eufaula, Oklahoma to have as kind of like a second home, but they ended up loving it there so much that they just moved full-time out to this lake house in Eufaula, Oklahoma. They weren't super social or anything like that with their neighbors, but they did seem pretty normal and happy, and they were active in their local church, and they did have some friends, and they were close with the family, so it wasn't totally bizarre.
Okay.
It wasn't crazy how reclusive they were at first. So fast forward to 2009, October 8th, 2009, in fact. The family packed up their pickup truck and drove 30 miles away to the San Juan Mountains. Apparently, they wanted to live a more isolated life, live a little bit further off the grid, have a little bit more privacy, that kind of a thing. So they were going up there to check out a property that they were maybe going to buy. And they had this large storage unit on their current property that they were going to move up to this place up in the mountains, in the San Juan Mountains, and live in their storage unit.
Okay, wow.
Yes. I'm assuming that the storage unit would be converted into like a tiny home.
I would hope so.
But pretty intense regardless.
Absolutely.
So they left their home in Eufaula and drove the about hour-long drive to Red Oak, Oklahoma. Now, this is in the San Juan area, which I said before. It's very wild, very remote, and it did not have a lot of paved roads. San Juan means without wood or without forest, but it's actually the opposite of that. It's like a huge, dense woods there.
Someone fucked up naming the place.
Yes, and that's the mystery of today's podcast.
What idiot fucked up naming this place?
It should be called Lots of Bois, not San Juan.
Yeah.
Okay? So they arrived in Red Oak and they met with the associate of the person who was selling the land that they were interested in. And after they saw this person, they asked if they could stay a little bit longer and just kind of explore a little bit. And the associate said yes, that was fine. And that was the last time the Jamison family was seen or heard of.
Wow. It seems like we're a little early on in the episode for this was the last time they were seen.
No, not really a lot is known about them.
That's kind of part of what makes this family unique, and I'm sure we'll dive in deeper as you tell us the story, is a very quirky family.
Yeah.
Quirky.
So no one really worried about this for the first few days that they were missing because the family owned a few timeshares and they traveled a lot, and they also were just all around reclusive. Their daughter Madison was not in school because there was an incident on the playground where her 2 front teeth were knocked out.
Whoa.
Yeah, something happened. So they pulled her out of school and they were homeschooling her. So the fact that she didn't go to school for a few days, no one knew, obviously, because she was homeschooled.
We're assuming it had to do with another kid, I'm assuming.
Yeah, but to make this transition for Madison a little easier, Bobby and Sherilyn, they got a little puppy for her named Maisie. And Maisie was actually with them at the time when they were looking at this piece of property. But after a few days of the family being missing, their family members did call the police and report them missing. On October 17th, 2009, their white pickup truck was found by some hunters. They called the police and they found the dog Maisie still inside the truck And she was barely alive, but she was alive, and she actually ended up moving in with Bobby's family and made a full recovery.
So, just so everyone knows, if there's one good thing, Maisie, even though she was near death, was saved and made a full recovery.
That's right. She was in that car for 8 days.
Didn't they say that they think she survived by eating her own scat?
Yeah.
Eating her own shit, which, I mean, a girl's got to survive.
Yeah, and she's a fighter.
She's a fighter, and she lived. So, just so everyone knows, the dog lives.
Yes.
But that's about the only happy note in this story.
Yeah, unfortunately. So once the car was found, the police were able to search it, and they were very surprised by what they found. In the car, there were their cell phones, wallets, IDs, coats, their GPS, and $32,000 in cash under the front seat.
Jesus.
Yes. Now, the family didn't trust banks, so they kept all of their money at home. And so maybe they kept some money in the car. But still, we'll get more into this later, but they did not have a lot of money at the time, or at least it didn't seem like, or they had a lot of money at the time. Bobby and Sherilyn, I think, both were on disability.
Okay.
And they couldn't just, you wouldn't expect them to just have $32,000 in cash at all.
Right. I knew Bobby was on disability. I didn't realize the wife was as well.
I believe she was on disability, or she just wasn't working.
Okay. And it was because of a back injury that he had, right?
Yeah, he got in a car accident and he had very extreme chronic back pain from after that. Yeah, he got in that car accident, I believe, in 2003.
Okay, so probably not long before or after the birth of their child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So once their car was found on October 17th, an enormous search effort began. There were over 400 volunteers, mules, horses, and cadaver dogs.
Mules?
Yeah, mules, I guess. I know, I was like, mules? But mules.
Maybe that's like if they're in terrain that's hard to, maybe that's why?
And we'll talk about that here in a second, but the terrain there was really, the mud was treacherous.
Now, are they still in Oklahoma?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I was following correctly.
Yeah. Apparently the dogs sensed something, or they were able to smell something and alerted their handlers that there was something at a nearby water tower which was drained, but nobody was found. They continued their search for weeks, but they didn't find anything. Sheriff Israel, it's either Beecham or Beauchamp, and I don't know which one it is.
I know, I've heard some people say Beecham, but then I've heard some people say that it's like Beauchamp, like if you pronounce it, like if it's a French name, but like I think even Beecham himself said Beach. I don't know.
Right, I think that the guy himself said Beecham, but I'm not sure.
Right.
So I'm just gonna say Beecham, but it might be Beauchamp. So Sheriff Israel Beecham said that the search was difficult right from the very start because of the thick triple canopy foliage, as well as how windy it was and how just the terrain in general was so hard to navigate and to get through.
Right.
Also, something that made it difficult was that deer season was quickly approaching, so that it would make it too dangerous for volunteers to be walking through the woods while it was deer season and someone could just see movement in the woods and shoot their gun.
Right.
So on October 31st, on Halloween, the search was pulled back a bit, but Beecham said that he would continue to search and look into the case for the remaining 3 years he had in office.
He has always, like in some of the documentaries we watched, it's something he kind of obsessed over.
Right.
While he was working as a sheriff and even after he retired, like it's kind of become this thing that in a good way, like, you know, he's kind of has always wanted to figure out what happened to this family.
Right.
In a noble way, not obsessed in a bad way, but like, you know, it kind of always ate at him that he was never able to really solve it.
Right, absolutely. Since they had their GPS in the car and the car was found, they were able to look through the GPS and see that the family took a 15-minute walk after looking at the property, and they brought their GPS with them. And then someone took a photo of Madison on Bobby's cell phone, probably where they took this 15-minute walk to. A lot of people think that this photo looks totally normal and that there's nothing wrong with it, but a lot of people do think that this photo is eerie or shows some kind of distress with Madison.
Yes.
Her family members, especially her grandmother, believes that this photo does not look normal and that Madison looks in distress and looks upset and feels like something is wrong.
Yeah, and it is kind of it is an upset, knowing the context of what happened to the family. It is an upsetting photo because it is hard to tell. Like, if you didn't know what happened,
right,
it would be kind of hard to read. Is she just maybe being a little fussy, or you know what I mean?
Right, or just caught at a weird moment. Kind of the
Right.
camera just clicked at a weird time or something.
Maybe she wasn't even in a bad mood. Maybe she
Right.
was just, sometimes the camera catches you and it looks. But knowing what happened, it does seem, unsettling. Like and the way she's got her arms crossed.
Right.
It's definitely raises red flags.
It does. Bobby's mother, Starlet Jean Jamison.
Starlet. Now, goddamn, that is a name.
She says, "In the picture, Madison is looking away from the camera. She looks unhappy and she has her arms crossed. She loved having her picture taken, and if it had been Bobby or Sherilyn behind that camera, she would not have looked like that."
And also, typically, most parents don't take a photo of their child when they're in the middle of a fit. Like,
Right.
every now and then you do, if you think it's cute or something, maybe when they're little. But, typically when a child is in a bad mood isn't when you're like, let me grab the camera.
Right.
Which is kind of, when you
So
think
it is
about it.
weird. Yeah. Then the GPS shows that they returned back to their truck, drove a little bit longer, and then parked their car. That is where the car was found, where the GPS last says that it was, obviously.
Right.
So that's all the information that they were really able to gather from this GPS. Now, as we said before, neither Bobby nor Sherilyn were working at the time of their disappearance. And it seems like neither of them had been working for a while at this point. Like we said before, Bobby was in a car accident in 2003, and so he had this chronic back pain and was living on disability, and that made him feel really depressed that he couldn't work, and just when you're in a great deal of pain for a long period of time, it can make you depressed. And Sherilyn had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but she was not good about taking her medication, so she could get incredibly depressed, as well as have these intense mood swings, causing her to lash out at her family. Really, what was a turn for her, a turn for the worse, where she really began to spiral, was in 2007 when her best friend and younger sister Marla passed away after being stung by a bee on her tongue.
Wow.
What just a freak accident.
What an awful... I'm assuming she was allergic to bees.
Right. Then, in July of 2009, so just a few months before the disappearance, Sherilyn's 12-year-old son from a previous marriage said that he would rather live with his dad, and she lost custody of him. He said that she was very depressed and acted strangely, so he would rather live with his dad in Oklahoma City. A few months later, Sherilyn was hospitalized after a failed suicide attempt. So just not long before the disappearance, this happened.
Wow, I did not hear about that. I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
So Sherilyn especially has been through the ringer, and then you add on Bobby's, his car accident that's left him chronically in pain.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like it's no wonder if there was just a general atmosphere of unhappiness.
Right.
You know.
Right, in the home. Now, Connie, who was Sherilyn's mother, lived with the family from March to June of 2008, and she said that Sherilyn's constant mood swings were taking a toll on their marriage. And one time, Sherilyn drove her mother into Oklahoma City for some reason, but when they got there, Sherilyn ordered her mother to get out of the car for apparently no reason.
Oh, yeah. That's weird, too.
Yeah, just like a weird thing to do. So I guess Sherilyn was just becoming more and more illogical.
Very interesting. Okay.
Starlet, Bobby's mom, said that Sherilyn was a totally different person when she was in the middle of a manic episode. Quote, "She became incredibly angry and spiteful sometimes. She was jealous of my relationship with Madison and my relationship with Bobby. The last time I actually spoke to Bobby was in April of 2009 because she had banned him from speaking to me on the phone. Bobby loved her and suffered from her moods. There was a time when I tried to get him and Madison to move away to Oklahoma City, but I really would have never wanted them to split up. They had their difficulties, but they loved each other very much." So I don't really know what to take from that exactly. It's like, it seems like Sherilyn was acting strangely for sure, but then at the same time, it's like this woman was trying to break up the marriage, essentially. So it makes sense maybe that Sherilyn wouldn't want Bobby talking to her.
Right. It's very much, even though it is very different in many ways, it reminds me a lot. So far, there's a lot of like Cindy James elements where you could very easily dismiss this as something related to mental health. But then, as we'll see, I won't spoil anything, there's elements that come in where it's like, wow, maybe this was something else entirely.
Right. Now, another thing that was found in the Jamisons' truck was an 11-page letter that Sherilyn had written to Bobby. And it was basically just a list saying all of the reasons why she was pissed at Bobby, calling him a hermit, and saying that she wanted a divorce. Now, Sherilyn's best friend, Nikki, said that this was just Sherilyn venting. Quote, "It was a form of therapy. She would write things down when they came to her mind, but she would move on. She loved Bobby." So there you go. I don't know.
Almost like a these weren't letters for other people to read. These were almost just personal, like almost like diary.
Well, I think so, but then I don't know if she actually gave it to Bobby or not. I'm not sure.
Very fascinating.
It was in the car.
Wow.
Yeah. I understand just like venting and writing something out in a diary is one thing, but if this was like... But maybe sometimes people like write letters, quote unquote letters to someone, and then they never actually intend on sending it as like a form of therapy.
Right.
But I don't know why it would be in the car if she didn't actually want to give it or did give it to Bobby. I don't really know.
Right, exactly.
And does Bobby understand that she is just exaggerating and she's just venting, or that she actually means these things? I don't know.
Right.
Now, on November 16th, 2013, so 4 years after the family went missing, the remains of all three of them were found by hunters 3 miles from where their truck was found in 2009. The search of the area brought up shoes, bones, bits of clothes, and bone fragments, as well as a small dried flower by Madison's shoes. It took a long time for the remains to be confirmed as those of the Jamison family because the skeletons had been so intensely decomposed that there wasn't much left for them to really be able to gather much from.
And think about this. How many years after their disappearance were they found?
4.
And only, 2 or 3 miles from the truck?
Yeah, 3 miles.
You got to think, because as we know, according to the sheriff, like there was a pretty extensive search for these folks.
Yeah.
Like you would have to think where the truck was found, within a radius of 5 to 10 miles, was probably combed over.
You would think so. And I mean, unless if it was just this terrain was so treacherous that there wasn't you couldn't see a lot and the leaves had started to fall.
Right.
But still, it does seem, I don't know.
Right. And obviously, I could very well, I don't know how actual proper searches work, so I could be very naive, but for it to take 4 years until they're just stumbled upon by hunters within 3 miles. It wasn't like they were taken somewhere on the other side of the country.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
You'd think someone would stumble upon that by then.
Right.
Even if it was hunters, you would think just people would stumble upon
it, because it's not like no one goes up there. I mean, people do go up there. It's just very, very remote and rural, but people do hunt there and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, 4 years later was when those remains were found. Sheriff Beecham himself said, quote, "Normally you can go through an investigation and one by one start to eliminate certain scenarios. We haven't been able to do that in this case. With this family, everything seems possible."
Wow.
Yeah.
Once again, it's one of, I feel like the most fascinating episodes we do are those episodes where no one theory 100% could explain everything.
Right, exactly.
It's like trying to put together a puzzle where one piece is missing. Mm-hmm. Or you have a piece of a puzzle from a different puzzle entirely.
Right.
And you're like, what's this doing here?
Right.
It's one of these stories.
Mm-hmm. Now, I need to mention another weird thing about this case.
Dish it up. Serve it up hot and nasty, Momo.
There was security camera footage that was acquired from the family home that you can see them packing up their van or packing up their truck and preparing to go on October 8th, 2009, the day that they went missing. The security camera footage is really, really bizarre. It just shows them walking back and forth between inside and their truck dozens of times, carrying things into the truck, taking things out of the truck, sometimes multiple times, and sometimes they just stop there and they just stare at each other or just stare into the distance.
And they don't speak to each other.
No, they never speak to each other.
They are quietly loading the truck. And sometimes they'll just stand there like in a daze.
Yeah.
Almost like, it reminds me of almost like in Paranormal Activity where she'd stand by the bed.
Yes, it's just like that.
It's almost like that. It's almost like they're in a trance. And honestly, it was this moment when we were looking into this where we were like, this is an episode.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those, it's that piece of a puzzle that doesn't fucking fit.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like, what was going on?
What was going on? I don't know.
They weren't speaking to each other. And sometimes they would just pause and just stare, sometimes at each other or sometimes just off into the distance. And then they would make several trips back and forth to the truck from the house. Like, it's unnerving.
It really is. If you just go onto YouTube and you type in Jamison family footage, it'll be, the first thing that comes up. You should definitely watch it. It is very weird.
It's weird.
So now I think it's time that we dive into some theories.
Please.
One theory is that this was just a freak accident. That the family simply got lost and they died from the treacherous elements out there. Now, the authorities believe that the Jamisons intended to return back to their car because of all of the things that they left in the car, as well as Maisie, the dog, being left in the car as well. So it makes you think that maybe this was just a quick little walk that they wanted to go on together, and they didn't think that they were going to get lost. And next thing you know, they get turned around, and then they die from the elements.
Right. But it also begs the question: if you're just going on a little jaunt, why the fuck do you have 32 G's in cash?
In cash.
Like, what? Yeah. Like, what? Why do you just got 32 large sitting in the cab of your car, of your truck?
Right. And I don't know if that was like to buy the property or something like that, but they never exchanged the money, so I don't know why they would bring the money for the property if they weren't going to do the exchange.
Absolutely.
Also, like we said, Bobby had really intense back pain, so you don't think he would have gone out for that far of a walk. They also were very outdoorsy people and were into the outdoors, so you think that they would know that this area could be really dense and it makes it really easy to get lost, so you think they would have brought their GPS like they brought their GPS for just that 15-minute walk they went on earlier.
Right.
It's possible, but it just doesn't really seem to make sense to me. Also, all of them were found they were laying face down, like all next to each other is how they were found. So I don't think they would all die from starvation or dehydration or from the elements in general, all at the same time like that.
While laying face down. Right. That's another puzzle piece that it's like, well, if this was an accident, why are they all like laying like that?
Right. Now, this is a theory that people have, is that they faked their own deaths. Now, this doesn't make any sense because their skeletons were found. So enough with that theory.
Right.
Another thought is that it was possibly a murder-suicide because Sherilyn did have a gun that she would keep in the car with her a lot of the time, but the gun was not found in the car or inside of the home.
And I'm assuming not on the bodies either.
But that's the thing, it wasn't by the bodies either.
Wow.
So I don't know. But maybe it could be a murder-suicide. I don't think she would kill her own daughter. Especially and leave the dog in the car, and it just seems kind of weird.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
There was a small hole in the back of Bobby's skull, but they couldn't really determine what that was from.
Right, because they had decomposed so much that...
Right, you couldn't tell if it was from a bullet or if it was from an animal or,
Right.
I don't know what. Now, another theory is that this was a drug deal gone wrong, and this could have gone down in a few different potential ways. One is that maybe they were using or buying drugs, and that's where they were, and that maybe they didn't have the money, or they didn't think they had the money, or they saw something they shouldn't have seen, or something like that, so they ended up being killed. Maybe Bobby was selling, or both of them were selling meth.
Right.
And that something happened, something went down wrong, and that's why they ended up being killed.
Because this area, I guess, was very well done. There is a meth-heavy area.
Yes.
Right?
I think so. Not saying that Eufaula, if, everyone in Eufaula is doing meth or anything like that, but just...
They make meth everywhere. It's nothing against Eufaula.
No, right, exactly. It's just in Oklahoma, it is a problem.
Right.
Some people thought that Bobby and Sherilyn were looking emaciated around the time of their disappearance too, which would kind of lend its hand to meth use possibly. But they didn't find any drugs or drug residue or drug paraphernalia or anything like that in the car or at home.
Right.
Another theory is that Bobby's father murdered them. 6 months before the Jamisons disappeared, Bobby filed a petition against his father, saying that his father was threatening to kill him. Bobby said that his father was involved with drugs and the Mexican mafia as well as prostitutes, and that his father had purposely hit him with a car back in 2008.
Wow.
Yeah. There was some issue between the two of them about a gas station that Bobby's dad owned, and that Bobby was supposed to get some money off of because he worked there for free, but then Bobby's dad wasn't going to go along with it, so that kind of started a fight, and then it escalated into like threats and then, getting physical, so it actually was a concern for Bobby and Sherilyn and Madison. For them, their safety was not like totally secure.
Right.
Bobby's father had a alibi, so he was not a suspect for the crime.
Okay.
And he died, I believe, like 6 months after this happened as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm assuming not of suspicious causes or...
No.
Okay.
Yeah. The next theory is that a cult did it. Now, what kind of cult did it? It could be a couple different things. One thing it could be would be a white supremacist cult.
Okay, interesting.
On the ID channel, there was a show, I think, called Disappearance or Disappearances or something like that, and this case was on it. And after it aired, Sherilyn's friend Nikki got a call from an anonymous person saying that they were a former member of a white supremacist group called the United White Knights, and said that they had a book in there of people that they didn't like. And she would go in there and she would memorize some of the names that were in the book. And then when she would go home, she would Google them and see if she could find anything out about them. And a lot of them came back as missing persons.
Wow, okay.
Including the Jamison family. Now, this person also said that she knew about this insignia that was on Bobby's wedding ring that wasn't published anywhere else. So it gave some credibility to this person that called in.
Oh, wow, okay.
Now, why a white supremacist group would be after this family, we might know here in a second. It's connected to another theory, which is that either a handyman or a family friend, or kind of he was both, I'm not sure, it's not totally clear, who stayed with the family and was a white supremacist himself did it.
Interesting, okay.
They didn't know he was a white supremacist, I don't think, at least at first.
Right.
Until it came out that Sherilyn had some Native American ancestry. And then this person freaked out and, was yelling racial slurs and everything and saying that he only liked white people. And so Sherilyn was worried about her and Madison's safety. So she pulled out a gun and made him get off of the property at gunpoint.
Also, I think something we need to consider, too, is if they were murdered, they didn't take that $32,000.
Right. Yeah, that's something that's really weird about the drug thing. You would think, especially if it was for a drug situation,
they would take the money.
Right.
Unless, they literally had gotten out for a walk and then stumbled upon something they weren't supposed to see. They were killed, and these people just didn't know they had a truck parked. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Because then it asks, well, then what were the if it wasn't drug related or financial related, then it was, it's just weird that the money would be left untouched.
Yeah, I think it's so weird, and it makes it confusing for so many different levels. For all of these different theories, that's the thing that kind of makes it not add up all the way sometimes.
Right.
Now, another type of cult that could have been responsible would be a satanic cult.
Oh, boy.
And maybe this is because the family could possibly have been involved with some kind of satanic cult, possibly. It's possible, and for that reason, we'll hear in a second. Because another theory is that maybe they were engaged in, quote, spiritual warfare and lost.
Whoa, okay, I hadn't heard about this.
Yes. The family thought for sure that their house was haunted.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, they thought that their house was haunted. They saw multiple different spirits and shadow people in the home.
What a thing to kind of tack on near the end. This, fascinating. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. The family's pastor, Gary Brandon, he said that the Jamisons believed that spirits possessed their home. Apparently, Bobby told Pastor Gary Brandon that he had a satanic Bible and later asked the pastor if there were any special bullets that existed that they could shoot at spirits.
What a question.
What a question. An intense question.
I've never heard of spiritual bullets.
Yeah. I don't really know if it would be like holy water or I don't know.
Right. I mean, I've heard of like silver bullets for a werewolf.
Right.
But bullets for like a spiritual entity?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
So yeah, this pastor, he just kind of just said no, something like that doesn't exist, and didn't, like call the police or anything like that.
Wow.
And Sherilyn was very interested in the occult as well. Apparently she had a witch's Bible, which I don't know what that is.
Like a grimoire?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay.
But a witch's Bible. And would do seances with her friend Nikki. Now, Nikki said that Sherilyn always took it more seriously than Nikki.
Right.
So Sherilyn did take it fairly seriously.
Interesting, okay.
And she believed that she could cast out demons or evil spirits. And in fact, she believed her cat was poisoned by the neighbors. So on her storage unit, she wrote, 3 cats killed to date by people in this area. Witches don't like their black cats killed. So,
well, goodness gracious.
So there you go. Now, some people think that she just was doing that as kind of like an intimidation tactic.
Right.
But maybe she really did think of herself as a witch at this point. I'm not sure. She might have.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But the house, they really, really felt like the house was haunted, and they saw various different entities in the house, and even her friend Nikki has this to say. In all seriousness, that house was haunted. I don't want to sound crazy, but whenever I went there, I felt a horrible presence. I would leave feeling so down and depressed. It's hard to describe. Once, I was in the living room, and the gray mist descended down the stairs. It really scared me.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are our theories for today's story. Dylan, what are your thoughts? Do you have a theory? What do you think is going on?
Honestly, I thought I had theories until we threw in, I didn't know this about the house being haunted.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. It's one of those things, nothing adds up.
Right. Nothing quite adds up.
I feel like it would be foolish to even try. I can't even. Yeah. So strange.
So strange and so bizarre. And I think that maybe the bodies were brought there maybe after they died. Maybe someone took them and killed them somewhere else and then brought the bodies back there.
Right. But clearly they also weren't interested in money. You know what I mean? They left the money there. They spared Macy, who lived, obviously, the dog.
Yeah.
So wild.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think, what your theories are, because this is such a crazy story. Feel free to write in the comments, write to us on any of our socials, or you can email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com.
Maureen, thank you so much for all that research.
You're welcome.
Well, here's a list of names I hope don't show up on a missing persons list.
Oh, come on.
Of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish Face Via Alungfus, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the oh-so-suave Sean Richardson, the British Bone Breaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Serve Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Buren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, the sadistic Sergio Castillo, the rapscallion Ryan Crum, the beast Benjamin Huang, the devilish Chris Doucette, and the psycho Sam.
Dylan, thank you so much for listing off all of those fantastic, beautiful names. And if you want to be like them, feel free to reach out to us at patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast. Thank you so much to all of our Patreon subscribers. A special shout out to our top tier. We're so grateful for you.
And happy belated birthday to the maniacal Laura Maynard.
Yes, happy birthday.
We were at a little shindig she threw at the local Music Box Theater, had a blast.
Oh, so much fun.
Loved celebrating her birthday. Of course, tell your friends, your family, your loved ones, evangelize the name of Creep Street.
Please like, rate, subscribe, leave a review, anything like that. It really helps us out, and we so appreciate it.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Goodbye.